Hey, hello everyone and welcome to the XavKit channel. Today I'm deep dive with you into the Kubernetes architecture. We will discover each component of a cluster. In the first part, we'll start with the control plane and after that with a worker node. If you are curious and you want to know what happened under the hood, this video is for you and I hope it will give you a complete understanding about how Kubernetes works. If you want, remember that you can subscribe to the channel and don't forget to like and comment or say hello to me. To start, we can consider that we just send a kubectl command or ask with a library like Python library to create a deployment to our cluster. So in fact, we are just a client who sends a request to a server. We declare a state that we want to have. So the API server is the main entry point into the Kubernetes cluster. When it receives the deployment request, it performs several checks to ensure the request is valid. It also handles authentication, authorization, and admission control checks to verify you have the necessary permissions. Once validated, the API server writes the deployment object, so the manifest, into the etcd database. Then the etcd database is a key value store that maintains the cluster state. It stores all information about the cluster, including nodes, pods, services, and deployment. By writing your deployment object to etcd, Kubernetes creates a record of your desired state. The etcd is crucial for the fault tolerance into our cluster. If any components fail, Kubernetes can recover based on the desired state stored in etcd. And etcd need to be composed with more than 3 nodes to high availability. Now the controller manager is responsible for maintaining the desired state of the cluster by comparing it with the current state. For your deployment request, the deployment controller within the controller manager notices the new deployment object in the etcd. It interprets this as a signal to create the desired number replica as pod for the deployment. The controller sends instruction back to the API server requesting the creation of new pods. And the scheduler watches for unscheduled pods in the API server. For each pod that the deployment controller requests, the scheduler determines the best node to place it on, based on factors like resource availability, affinity, and taints or tolerations. Once it selects an appropriate node, it updates the API server with the scheduling decision, effectively binding the node to the pod to a node by setting a metadata named node name. Each worker node in the cluster has a kubelet process running on it. The kubelet acts as the node agent, constantly communicating with the API server to check for any assigned pods. On the kubelet receives the scheduling decision from the API server. It takes the responsibility for starting containers specified by the pod manifest using the node container runtime, like for example containerd. Then the container runtime on the worker node, pulls the necessary container images and starts the containers based on the specification in the pod manifest. The runtime also manages networking and mounts any volumes required for the application. Of course, and remember, behind the container runtime, we can keep in mind that a container is just a process on our Linux server with cgroup to limit resources and namespaces for isolation. And finally, each node has a service named kubeproxy, which manages networking for Kubernetes services. It ensures that the pods in your deployment can communicate with other services within or outside the cluster. We will see it later, but if you expose the deployment with a service, kubeproxy will create the necessary routing rules for example with IP tables, to enable stable access to your deployment pod and their replica. This modular design enables Kubernetes to automate deployments, scaling, and maintenance efficiently and reliability. Thank you for watching this video. Don't hesitate to subscribe and like or comment it, and see you in the next one. Bye!